For gas welding these two 5/16" pieces of mild steel together, the first thing that I do is to weld the ends together. So when I apply the heat, they do not separate. When I first started learning how to braze and weld with the oxygen acetylene torch, I would put two rods parallel with each other just like this. Then I would begin to either braze or weld from one end. This caused me all kinds of difficulty because, as you can see, as I heat the rods up on the right end, on the left end, the rods will begin separating just because of the heat. This caused me no end of problems, because what was happening is I would braze or weld down through here, the gap just kept getting larger and larger. And then I learned to weld both ends together before starting. Here I'm putting the two 5/16" rods in this vise. Then I will just melt the ends together. This is just a slight fusion weld. Then I will turn it over and do the same thing on the other end. Here I have the two 5/16" rods fuse welded together on the ends. I'm heating this up. Now we're to red hot, which would be just right for brazing. Then, as you can see on the right, it's going into a yellow hot. You see the sparks, and the 5/16" rods are melting. What I'm doing here is called fusion welding. Melting both edges of the 5/16" rods together. With arc welding, and especially MIG welding, gas welding is pretty much obsolete. You're not going to find it in industry because it is just too slow. But for the home shop, I'd suggest learning how to gas weld with your oxygen acetylene torch. I have a MIG welder, but oftentimes I will prefer to gas weld. Here is the fusion weld once it's been cleaned up on the wire brush. Fusion welding is not as strong as gas welding in the sense where you use a gas filler rod. But for many applications in the home shop, it's more than adequate as far as strength is concerned. In this example of fusion welding, you can see towards the bottom of the piece where some of the definition of the 5/16" rods has been lost due to overheating. In this example, I'll be using a 3/32 RG45 gas filler rod. It's a mild steel gas welding rod, very standard. Heating both of the 5/16" rods, getting them up to the same temperature, and then melting the gas filler rod in between. What's happening is that the 5/16" rods are melting and the gas filler rod is melting at the same time, so when they cool as one metal. This is a decent gas weld. It's not perfect, but if this is something that you or I did every day, with a little practice, we could begin turning out perfect gas welds with the oxygen acetylene torch using the RG45 gas filler rod. Now this is another problem I had when I first started. I'd be welding along, and I'd get the welding rod welded to the metal that I was welding. And it took me a while to figure out that all I had to do was just heat that rod up and burn it off, and then go back to welding. But until I learned that, it was rather frustrating. I think the oxygen acetylene torch is the most versatile of all welding equipment, and I'd suggest taking some time to learn how to gas weld. I can assure you, it's a useful skill to have